Welcome back to the public hearing and public meeting of February 14th, 2023 of the Landmarks Preservation Commission. We will be resuming this afternoon with public hearing item number 5, and I will turn it over to Caroline Kane-Levy to take us through the afternoon items.
Yes, item number 5 is docket number 2305059, 45 West 81st Street, also known as 41 to 49 West 81st Street, in the Upper West Side Central Park West Historic District, Borough of Manhattan, Block 1195, Lot 5. This is an application for a certificate of appropriateness at a neo-Moorish style apartment building with Spanish Renaissance style elements designed by Sugarman and Hess and built in 1922. The application is to construct a rooftop addition.
Hey, Commissioners, the applicants have entered the hearing. Matt, you now have control of the presentation. You just need to click on your screen.
By clicking?
You have not clicked on your screen yet. There you go. Great. You can advance the slides now using your arrow keys or your mouse. Please state your name for the record and you may begin.
Okay. Actually, I'm going to start Valerie Campbell, a partner at Kramer 11, and I'm land use counsel to the applicant, and I'm joined by Matt Markowitz, who's the architect, and also John Young, the owner of the property, is here. As Carolyn said, this application is for a certificate of appropriateness for a setback penthouse addition to 45 West 81st Street, which is located on the north side of West 81st Street between Columbus Avenue and Central Park West. It is in the Upper West Side Historic District. Next. And these are the second ones.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. So these are the designation photos. It is a 15-story building. It was originally constructed and operated for many years as a transient hotel, which is actually was a non-conforming use because this is a residential district. The new owner is converting the building back to standard residential use, so there will be no transient hotel use. The residential use is as of right. The addition is approximately 3,853 square feet, which is below the allowable floor area for the building. The existing building height is 153 feet, and with proposed, it's 164 feet, which is also below the allowable maximum height of 210 feet. Matt will now walk you through the design of the addition and also through our visibility studies.
Good afternoon, Commission. My name is Matt Markowitz. I'm the architect here on behalf of the owners at 45 West 81st Street, seeking your support on a new enlargement to this building. This slide shows a bird's eye view of this addition, which is a very simple, modern style metal panel and clear glass. And the color has been sort of changed from what was originally proposed as a light gray to a light buff color. Just a little warmer color, sympathetic to the existing brick and terracotta that this building has currently. The parapet should be noted. There's two decorative gable type parapets that are standing in front of this building that prevent a lot of the visibility. Even though this is a bird's eye view, most of this is being set back 10 feet from the front, and the penthouse in elevation, you can see the existing rooftop addition on the left and then the proposed enlargement on the right superimposed. It's a one-story enlargement. It's approximately 10 feet to 11 feet high to the top. The interior that we're proposing is a duplex unit that goes from the 15th floor to this new enlargement at the roof. The rooftop enlargement shown here is covering most of the front section of the building on the rooftop. The rear portion is, I guess, covered with mechanicals, has a water tower, has equipment, and does not allow for much enlargement. The rear setback for 30 feet for zoning doesn't permit a full enlargement in this area. There's an existing courtyard that must be maintained on the east and west sides. This is a proposed plan of the future enlargement. This is more for illustrative purposes to just show that this is a residential unit with living rooms, kitchens, accessory spaces, bedrooms. The front of the building, the next slide here, shows the upper roof section on top of this, which is just a maintenance roof. There's not going to be any use up there. We're showing solar panels, which is in response to the local law 9294 of a sustainable rooftop. There will be additional landscaping on the lower roof portions to comply with this. The front elevation of this building, again, is mostly metal panels, clear glass, and the color tones are similar to the existing building now, so it's somewhat sympathetic. It should be noted that this material was chosen purposefully so it would distinguish itself from the historic portions of the building that are mostly masonry, brick, and terracotta. This is a section showing the proposed construction. We're showing an 11-foot height of the new construction, which gives us an approximately 9-foot interior floor-to-ceiling condition due to structure, insulation, assemblies, roofing, sprinklers, lighting, and things that have to be inserted on the interior. We believe that the 9-foot is an appropriate height for this type of market, and that's something that we've investigated, we've adjusted, and we provided different mock-ups that are shown in the next photos. This is a photo taken from Columbus Avenue, and it shows the minimal visibility of the rooftop addition from a distance. It should be noted that the photo taken is at least a block away from the current building. The close-up photos show the minimal visibility at the front, which sit between the two decorative gables and above a mansard. The next photo is taken on 81st Street, which is about a block away on 80th Street and Columbus. And again, it's minimally visible from a distance. And the close-up photo shows that a portion of this is visible from the west side, which is at a side yard in the building, and from the front. The next shot is from the park across the street, again, showing minimal visibility, and a close-up showing the available rooftop addition above the mansard. This is a shot north of the building along Columbus, showing the rear portion, the existing water tower, and very minimal visibility from the rear. There will be a railing installed around the perimeter of the roof for safety purposes, and that's essentially the only thing that's visible aside from the existing bulkhead. This is a shot along West 81st Street, closer to Central Park South, that shows that there's almost no visibility of the new addition to the rooftop. This is an aerial view showing the existing block along West 81st Street. And it should be noted that every building along this block from West 81st Street to Columbus and to Central Park West has a rooftop addition of some sort. Our addition is a modest addition. It's a 1-story addition similar to these other buildings. And the setback of 10 feet is very similar to what these buildings have currently. And some of these buildings have less than that. This is some photos showing other buildings in the surrounding neighborhood that have one-story additions. And there's some additional photos of other recent building rooftop additions in the neighborhood. And this is our presentation. We'd like to see if there's any questions.
Thank you very much. All right, commissioners, do we have any questions? All right, I don't see any questions at this time, so let's move to public testimony. If you're in, oh yes, Commissioner Shamir Baran, please go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just wonder, can you share an image of the roof accretions as they exist right now, one more time?
The aerial view?
No, of this building.
Okay.
So are there any images that show us what we see from the street on the roof currently before the proposal? Okay, so sorry, the image on the left, do we see any of, I mean, it's not set back any further, is it? Or do we see any of it from the same views that you currently are showing us?
No, I don't believe so. May have to correct me, but these bulkheads are set back, but they are not currently visible.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, other questions? All right, let's move to testimony. If you're in the meeting and would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand so we can identify you, and I'll turn it over to Gregory Kalla to take us through the testimony.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We received a few signups beforehand, so we will be going through those first. The first sign up we will be hearing from is Kay Carpin from Manhattan Community Board 7. So Kay Carpin, I will be promoting you to panelist now. And if you could please unmute your line and state your name for the record, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Yes, hi, everybody. Kay Carpin from co-chair of the Community Board 7 Preservation Committee. Good to see everybody. Community Board 7 supports this application as minimally appropriate to the character of the historic district, but we did have several reservations. We took a very hard look at it because the penthouse addition is going to be visible from the park and the museum and from down Columbus Avenue. Our initial concerns included the public visibility, the height, the narrowness of the setback, the width of the addition, and the degree that the originally proposed design clashed with the existing architecture. So we were very pleased that after our Preservation Committee meeting and prior to last week's full board meeting, we were advised of some very welcome changes. First, the applicant modified the design by changing the color of the facades from kind of ugly gray to buff, and which we feel coordinates better with the overall vision of the building. And second, the applicant agreed to set back the west wall of the addition 3 feet and to add windows to the east and west facades. Also welcome changes. And we appreciate the responsiveness of the applicant to our concerns. So our community board further recommends that the glass be bird-proof, whether or not required by code, and that green roof options be explored for the top of the penthouse. Community Board 7 supported the petition, the application, 28 in favor, 7 against with 1 abstention. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your testimony. And we will now be hearing from Megan Fitzpatrick from Landmarks West. So Megan Fitzpatrick, I am promoting you to panelist now. And if you could please unmute your line and state your name for the record, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. Megan Fitzpatrick for Landmark West. The Landmark West Certificate of Appropriateness Committee is concerned about this rooftop addition and the potential impact it has on the dominant design of the building, particularly at the skyline. Firstly, we believe the addition is too close to the front and sides of the building's existing parapet. Additionally, the interior floor to ceiling heights of the new penthouse is significantly greater than the existing floor height below and could be lowered to reduce visibility. Thirdly, the off-center placement of the addition interrupts one's reading of the landmark, which has a dominant symmetry. Although our committee believes the design itself is minimal in materials and form and does not compete with the original design, the intention of Sugarman and Hess was to draw the eye up to the ornate neo-Moorish arches at the cornice level. Ultimately, this proposed expansion of Unit 16D is impossible to overlook when observing it from the street level, and the size and orientation will compete with the key defining features of this landmark. Additionally, visibility studies shown on slide 14 are conveniently framed left and right by 2 tree trunks, which block one's full understanding of the mock-up's impact on the decorative roof. Given that this proposal is visible as far south as West 77th Street, we provided the commissioners with, along with our testimony, additional views to show the potential impact. The Landmark West Certificate of Appropriateness Committee would ask that the applicant consider setting the addition back further and pull it in equally at both sides to lessen its proximity to the front facade and its visibility. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for your testimony. And next up, we'll be hearing from Lucy Levine from Historic Districts Council. So Lucy Levine, I'll be promoting you to panelist now. And if you could please state your name for the record and unmute your line, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC is concerned about the visibility and bulk of this proposed rooftop addition. Not only is the addition visible from a considerable distance, but also it inappropriately fills the gap between the neo-Moorish arches at the building's cornice and diminishes their reading as independent features against the sky. In order to reduce visibility and defer to the existing neo-Moorish arches, the addition needs to be set back further and reduced in height by at least a foot. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. And I'm looking through the attendees now, and I do not see any further hands raised. So I will bring it back to you, Chair Carroll. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. I'd like to ask the applicants if they'd like to respond to the testimony.
Yes, we would. We do believe that it is, while there is some visibility, it is, as HTC admits in their testimony, from a great distance. And we do not feel that when you look at it in the normal views, that it detracts in any way from the arches. And you really have to zoom in to understand that there's even a penthouse there. We have reduced the height as much as possible in an effort, but we do have to provide the required structure. So I don't think the 11-foot height is excessive for the addition overall. And we are limited in our ability to pull it back because we have those courtyards behind. And so the width of the addition is sort of limited. It's only at a maximum about 20 feet, but then when you start, accommodating closets, bathrooms, circulation, there is not a lot of room to work with. And we are looking into efforts to bird-proof the addition, but we would note that it is not subject to the building code requirements because those only apply at heights less than 75 feet, which is in fact most bird collisions occur below at that height or below. I don't know, Matt, is there anything you want to add?
No, if you want to look at the floor plan that we're proposing, you can go through it. I don't know if I can have access again. We showed dimensions on it that the dimensions shown are reasonable for a penthouse of this size, and for the use that we're proposing, it's about 15 feet deep, plus there's accessory spaces for bathrooms and closets and such that sort of limit this. We're providing a 10-foot setback, which is required by code, and is similar to the other buildings along this block that have existing rooftop additions. And I think we showed that in the aerial view that are very similar. So I don't think we're looking for something that the other buildings do not have.
Okay, so the setback is 10 feet.
Correct.
Okay, and in the views, there's a dark band between the two gables. That's part of the architecture of the building, right? And
Correct.
That's
There's an
a
existing
shed.
mansard that exists between the two gables. Yes.
okay. That's a mansard. I got it. Okay, and then the mock-up and the rendering show addition above it. Okay. All right, commissioners, any other questions? All right, let's move to our discussion now then. All right, Commissioner Jefferson, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So move.
Thank you. And Commissioner Shamir Baron, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so the hearing is closed and we'll now begin our discussion. And this is a proposal for a one-story penthouse at this building, which is an H-shaped building and has, and the unit they would be expanding is at the front portion. We do know from other examples in other projects we've reviewed that historically many apartment buildings on the Upper West Side had one-story, sort of often utilitarian rooftop additions, and we've approved rooftop additions that are visible in different ways on apartment buildings. So this one has a view between two parapets over a mansard, and then a view also over the west facade of it. So over the side, and it's set back from the front and the side. So we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Gulpin, would you like to start this one?
Sure. I think that in general, the idea of doing this scale of rooftop addition is acceptable. And I think that the interesting quality of the building is that those two gables kind of make the distinctive skyline. And this infill doesn't, even though it is visible, doesn't, I don't think, lessen the impact of those two gables. However, I think that the staff had a very good idea, which I think to the extent that we can lower that apparent zone above the little faux mansard, I think that would be certainly advantageous. And the mansard really calls it out. This is in a way like kind of a little cap to the mansard in a funny way. The geometry works very well. So I think that the staff's idea about maybe angling it back is a good idea. And I think that even if you can't necessarily drop the entire ceiling along the entire depth of the addition, I think it would be possible to lower the roof at the front 5 feet or so that it tapers up or something, so that you could reduce the view slightly. But I think they could do that with staff. Okay,
Great, thank you. Commissioner Chen?
I think Michael put it very well. It does look like a infill, but also following up on whether the material is appropriate. I think the metal cladding may not be as appropriate. That's my comment.
Commissioner Bland?
Yes, to me, it's the material that's the problem. Not seeing this, I think it's key that it's symmetrical because of the nature of the building's design, infilling between those two features. So I don't mind that, but what I mind is a metal. And I think I've heard that it's been changed from a dull gray to a beige. I'm not sure what the right color is to make it recede the most, but I can rely on staff to make that judgment. And I think that's what the key is. And I think metal is just probably the material. It should be a stucco color, a stucco material, or even brick.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Lutfi?
Yeah, I agree with Fred about the stucco. I think it will look, it'll look a little better and it'll work better with the materiality around it. But I also agree that I just don't know how much canting back there is going to be able to happen. But I think that the applicant should work with staff on that.
Okay, thanks. Commissioner Jefferson?
I agree with Commissioner Goldblum's comments about this elevation, but I also worry about the secondary elevation. I think that elevation should be pushed back somewhat
So right now you can't see that secondary view because of the tree, but I think you would be able to see it angled. So they should push that back a little. But I think lowering it and pushing it back would be appropriate. And I think the way these two ends meet the sky is so lovely that the dark piece in between, if we can keep that visible, we've accomplished what we're looking to accomplish.
Commissioner Shamir Baron.
Yes. This one's a bit, I find a little bit difficult. In asking for it not to be visible, I'm reminded that we approved the project on 77th Street, which was quite visible from various places, including the park. And in this case, I had problems with that, and I have problems with this. But here, firstly, the reason why we are able to see it from such a distance is because, like the project on 77th Street, there's kind of a big opening created by the green space around the museum. So had this been a kind of a true tall street wall next to it, and we might have seen it from a few angles, but here we'll sort of always see it. And I find that to be a problem. I actually think that the sort of the plan, or the plan itself, should shift so that it significantly notches back where sort of between the gables, that their real outdoor space that's robust and can be used in all the ways that they want for it to be used happens behind the gables, but that the area that's visible between the gables is really not visible above the mansard. I think it really needs to be super minimized, which means push back, lower down, whatever it takes to do that. And while I do think that it can happen with staff, I just feel strongly that it should not be seen.
Okay. All right. And I do appreciate that. I know that, we have certainly approved a number of visible additions, and I understand your feeling about the architecture here and the mansard and not wanting to see it. I think I'm with the majority of other commissioners who feel that it can be symmetrically placed between the two gables and not diminish the impact or the architectural significance of those gables. But I do think they should work to try to reduce it to the extent possible. If they bring their 9-foot ceiling down to an 8-foot ceiling, or look at sloping it. So, and the change in material. So I think we have 6 to support it with the changing the material to stucco or masonry or another masonry material, and reducing the height or setback of both the front and the west side of the additions. Commissioner Goldblum, would you be able to make that motion?
Sure, now that I'm unmuted. Okay. Regarding 45 West 81st Street and the Upper West Side Central Park West Historic District, the application is to construct a rooftop addition. I note the building's style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Upper West Side Central Park West Historic District. I recommend approval with modifications, finding that the work will not damage, eliminate, or obscure any significant architectural or historic features of the building. That buildings of this type throughout the historic district were commonly constructed with visible roof penthouses, rooftop bulkheads, and other accretions. Therefore, the construction of a visible rooftop addition to this building will be consistent with the historic roofscapes. But the overall height of the penthouse will be in keeping with a variety of conditions found at the roofs of buildings of this size within this historic district, including historic penthouses and some modern additions with bulkheads, water tanks, and other utilitarian accretions above their roofs. That the proposed addition will not be visible directly over the primary facade from West 81st Street and will only be seen at a distance in views from Theodore Roosevelt Park and Columbus Avenue. But the height and setback of the proposed addition will be, when seen over the secondary west facade, will not substantially interrupt the building's silhouette and will remain subordinate to the false front gables. That the proposed addition's setback placement, simple horizontal massing, large expanses of glazing, and thin framing and light finish cladding will maintain a sense of lightness differentiated from the original masonry structure. However, I recommend that the applicant work with staff to reduce the visibility of the addition between the front false gables, either by lowering the overall height of the addition or setting or canting it back from the parapet, or other possible changes that would reduce visibility. And the cladding material be changed from metal to stucco or brick in a color that is harmonious with the facade, in consultation with staff.
Thanks, and we'll ask them to look at the west elevation as well that Commissioner Jefferson mentioned. Okay. Great. So Commissioner Chen, would you second that motion?
Delighted to second it.
Okay, thanks. And John, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Vice Chair Bland,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi,
Aye.
Commissioner Shamir Barron.
Aye.
7 in favor, none opposed. The motion passes.
All right, so that's approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll move to the next and final item.
Thank you.
The next item is item number 6, docket number 2304893, 292 Kent Avenue, the former Havemeyers and Elder Filter, Pan, and Finishing House, the Domino Sugar Corporation, an individual landmark, located in the borough of Brooklyn, block 2414, lot 25, an application for a certificate of appropriateness. 3 American round arch style industrial buildings designed by Theodore A. Havemeyer and others and built in 1881 to 84. The application is to install a marquee.
Okay, Commissioners, the applicants have entered the hearing and the staff will be taking you through the presentation.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Richard Lai, Preservation Staff. I have the applicants here to give a brief presentation of just the current state of the progress of the development that has been previously approved at the request of the chair, and I will hand it over to them, and then they will, following that short presentation, continue on with the proposed scope of work for the marquee. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dave Lombino at Two Trees. Chair Carroll and Commissioners, thank you for your time and attention to this issue. A little bit of history and context here. Two Trees acquired the Domino Sugar Factory from a previous developer in 2012. At the time, the approved plan for the refinery building was for condominium use. Two Trees elected to go back through a Euler process to change the use from residential to office with retail at the base. We were successful in that effort. We thought mainly that this building would be a better landmark in many ways if there was public access to it. And while a condo is very restrictive of access, a commercial office building that with public access at the ground floor level would be a better use of this particular site and building. We appeared twice before this commission with 2 different schemes for the landmark, both approved. Our most recent scheme, you can see in front of you here. We started work on construction roughly 5 years ago, working to demolish the interior of the building while preserving the facade. Required quite a bit of engineering, quite a bit of money. We spent roughly 2 years repointing the bricks. You can see here the difference between the before and after power wash and very detailed brickwork. You can see now the crane on the right. We've been working on constructing the building within the building, which would be a Class A office building. We've done so, we've topped off recently within the last couple of weeks. We're going to be installing windows on the interior, not on the facade and not on the landmark, but on the building, within the building, starting this week, and we expect to be done in July. We've started marketing the building for occupancy, and we hope to have a tenant sometime soon. We're here today. I see there's some more detail here on the brick restoration. Give you a sense of what we're up to. I'm joined today by Hale Everetts, who runs our construction at Domino and can give you a detailed, if needed, description of what's going on and what went on with the brick. I'm also joined by Dominic Kozierski, our project architect for the marquee that we're proposing here today. This is going to be a building, hopefully soon, that will have as many as 3,000 people working here on a daily basis. There'll be an entrance along Kent Avenue, and it needs to be designated as such for people coming and going. And I'll turn it over now to Dominic, who can, if there aren't any questions, who can walk through our presentation on the marquee.
Unfortunately, Dominic did not enter the hearing, and he is not, and they are not here. But Hale Everetts is here.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Thank you for your time. In lieu of Dominic, I will present the design for the canopy. You're looking here at the Kent Avenue elevation. So this is between South 2nd and South 3rd Street. Within the center along Kent Avenue here is the area that we're going to be talking about, which is the blackened steel canopy and is the primary entrance for the office building. As David mentioned in his introduction, we anticipate approximately 3,000 people entering this location every day. The canopy is intended to provide cover, but also to signal where that entrance location is within the building. The design intent from Benetti Kozierski was to create something that was architecturally consistent with the original materials, and hence the choice for a blackened steel canopy. At the same time, they wanted to celebrate the brick and make this canopy as proportionally appropriate as possible and to keep it as thin and light as possible. And so that's why they've proposed this very thin plate to cover the length of the entrance, which is really a colonnade that you enter into the building. You can see here that it is a blackened steel plate that is supported by outriggers or ribs that carry the load of the plate. And this material choice is significant in that you'd often see blackened steel at loading dock entrances or stitched into the brick where the brick needed to be reinforced or held together. They've also proposed a detail where there's a small gap or separation between the canopy and the brick face to allow that brick to be continuous in elevation so that the brick appears to slip past or through the canopy. That's the area that is on the right-hand side. And that would be lit so that the brick would be illuminated at night to articulate the texture and color of the masonry facade. Proportionally, this canopy extends approximately 8 feet from the face of the building and is at an elevation that sits just above those existing corbelled arches and between the bluestone kind of intermediate sill that is above it. Benetti Kozierski felt strongly, as did we, that we did not want to interfere with any of those unique masonry details. Within this image, you see the second arch from the left, that sort of blackened steel reference that I mentioned at the beginning of this conversation. That sort of materiality that you see at major entrances into the older factory, where you might be loading material or where corners might get damaged, they were reinforced with blackened steel. And so the material choice is consistent or paying respect to that earlier material. In our analysis, we're looking at precedents. St. Anne's Warehouse comes to mind, Empire Stores comes to mind, all close to our roots here in Brooklyn and in Dumbo. And again, the choice of materiality, the black and steel, it unifies with the kind of industrial heritage of these masonry buildings.
Just a note, Dominic insists that he is logged in, but maybe he needs to be identified as such.
Yeah, do you have what name he is logged in as? 'Cause he doesn't have the name that we have on our list. Okay, well, if you get us his full name, we can look for it. All right. Commissioners, do we have any questions? All right, not seeing any questions. Let's move to public testimony. If you're in the meeting and would like to testify on this item, please raise your hand so we can identify you. I do note that there are 2 hands that are raised that say Kozerski Architecture. Is that Dominic that you're looking for? Okay, so that Dominic, when we'll move you into the meeting, you don't speak during the testimony, but you're welcome to speak after the testimony. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Gregory Kalla to take us through the public speakers today.
Okay, thank you, Chair Carroll. We received 1 sign up in advance, so we'll be hearing from them first. That speaker is John Graham from the Victorian Society in New York. So John Graham, I'll be promoting you to panelist now. And if you could please unmute your line and state your name for the record, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Graham for the Victorian Society in New York. When we looked at this proposal, we were perplexed. There seems to be no relationship between the design of the proposed marquee and the design of this individual landmark's historic masonry. And while previous permits left the historic facade as a clean shell, this work would conceal a wide strip of brickwork. The proposed change seems contrary and especially odd considering project architect Ruchika Modi's intention as described in last Sunday's New York Times article on the project. She stated in the article, or quoted in the article, "Our immediate instinct was to leave the beautiful masonry facade as it is." Ideally, any new material added to an individual landmark creates a harmonious dialogue between the new and the historic. That's not the case here. The long flat marquee is just applied to the front of the building. And it's especially disturbing because there seems to be a way forward which the applicants haven't explored. Commissioners, the beautiful masonry arches which adorn the windows and doors of this building are the major decorative feature. Freestanding sidewalk canopies are typically arched. And while this type of canopy is not a normal feature for buildings of this age and type, it is a typical element of New York City streetscapes. A modern version of an arched sidewalk canopy would relate perfectly to the building's arched openings, would provide protection for visitors, and would provide space for the building's name and address. We urge redesign of this project using a version of an arched sidewalk canopy. We must also question the width of the proposed marquee. If you look at image 3, you can see that the plan shows a marquee inside the courtyard, indicated by a dotted line. The inner marquee appears to be 20 feet wide. The proposed outer marquee is 60 feet wide. We can't see any functional reason for providing a new outer marquee, which will conceal historic masonry over openings which just lead to an unprotected section of the inner courtyard. An arched sidewalk canopy in the central bay would align with this inner marquee and give visitors a dry path right to the building's main entrance. Finally, we'll note that we've seen a lot of proposals for this type of glass and metal canopy at many early 20th century office buildings recently. It's become something of a cliche. We believe that this individual landmark deserves something better, which will relate more closely to the building's original design. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Okay, I am looking through our participants and I do not see any further hands raised. So I will just note for the record that Brooklyn Community Board 1 recommends approval. And I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to turn back to the applicant team now and ask if you'd like to respond to the comments we've heard.
Sure, Dominic.
Yes, this is Dominic Kozerski here. I'm sorry, I don't know why it wasn't possible to be logged in earlier. We're working on the interior fit out of the building, and to us, like a simple gesture like this that relates more to the modern addition to the building that's happening largely on the inside of the building seemed more appropriate than trying to mimic something that's part of the existing fabric that is being restored. And there are quite a lot of historical precedents for black steel plate structures incorporated into brick buildings like this, as we suggested, other historical buildings along the Brooklyn waterfront. So I'm not sure that it's inappropriate, but I would say that the scale of it is also something that we studied in great detail. Like if you go back a couple of slides and you see the overall scale of the building, if you go back even one more and one more further, it's a really huge building. So this sort of simple gesture at the entrance, and the thing to note is that the canopy is also this long because it's the entrance is through each one of these 5 arches at the base, where you can see there's a small person in one of the openings. And that's because the building is set back within this brick facade, so people will be flowing through each one of these entrances. So it's also a practical consideration for it to be the size that it is.
Okay, commissioners, any final questions? All right, then I think we'll move to our discussion. All right, and Commissioner Lutfi, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. And Commissioner Shamir Baran, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed. And I do want to thank the applicant team for giving us a little update on the overall project. I think it's after the long road since designation and reviewing this application multiple times, or an application for these buildings. It is in multiple buildings here. Multiple times. It's just wonderful to finally see work happening and the restoration beginning, and very exciting to see the new life that this landmark will have. And I do think that the installation of marquees on industrial buildings is something that we have seen and we have approved many times. I think the approach here, as has been presented, is to do something very thin and minimal, but that it relates to the new construction, which is highly visible and a sort of fourth part to this building, if you will. And so I think that approach does seem to make sense and allows one to really read the strength of the masonry portions of the historic buildings. So let's go ahead and begin. Commissioner Lutfi, would you like to start?
Yeah, I feel like you kind of said it all, Sarah. First of all, I'm very excited to see this project making progress as you are, because it is an exciting project on so many levels, from a restoration standpoint, from an economic development standpoint. This particular applicant does a very good job in general with these kinds of buildings, as we've seen in some of their other projects. And I happen to agree that this is a very simple, and I actually think the applicant used this word, and I agree with it, gesture on the building. It is slim, it is understated, it doesn't get in the way of this tremendous the magnitude of this structure, and the color seems right, the acrylic seems right, and it seems like it's going to be very functional, and hopefully there will be 3,000 people working there in the near future.
Yes. Okay, great. Commissioner Jefferson.
I love the concept of this project. It's really conceptually beautiful. And what they did here is quite appropriate and lovely.
Commissioner Shamir Baran.
I agree. I think that this is just a pitch perfect solution. Its location, its width, its profile, diminishing almost to nothing dimension in the front, and it really does relate to, to the addition, which is not just interior. I mean, the drum is so important and such an important statement about how it is that you can really have new construction in true dialogue with historic fabric. It's a perfect and exemplary project in that sense, and I think that this canopy continues in that same vein, and I think it's absolutely appropriate.
Thank you. Commissioner Goldblum.
I agree. I think it's a very lovely piece. I just have one concern about it. It does seem to me that it crowds the masonry arches. I think that one of the quintessential aspects of this building is the massiveness of it, the feeling of thickness, space between windows, etc. And kind of by splitting the spandrel above the arches in half, I think it creates a kind of brittle proportion that is alien to the building. So what I would suggest is that they raise it up to the underside of the bluestone string course and allow for the pedestrians below to experience a little more of that masonry. But otherwise, I think it's appropriate.
Thank you. And Commissioner Chen.
Yeah, I agree with all the commissioners about this is very appropriate, and love to see this thing move along the way. It's a very important building.
Okay, great. All right, so I think we have a consensus to approve. Commissioner Lutfi, would you make a motion to approve it and then also ask them to explore with staff raising the height of the canopy?
Yeah. Sure. In the matter of docket 23-04893-292 Kent Avenue, former Havemeyer and Elder Filter, Pan and Finishing House, Domino Sugar Corporation, individual landmark. Okay. I recommend approval, finding that the proposed work will not eliminate, damage, or obscure any significant historic fabric, that the simple design and dark finish steel of the proposed marquee will harmonize with the industrial character of the building, that the proposed marquee is well scaled to this monumental facade, that the small recessed light fixtures at the underside of the marquee will be well integrated with the overall design, that the frosted acrylic signage relates well to the marquee in terms of its size and position, and the lighter colored material will provide a contrast to the black metal framing without overwhelming its slim design, that the marquee will assist in the adaptive reuse of this formerly industrial building, that the work will not detract from the special architectural or historic character of the individual landmark. I recommend that the applicant work with staff to raise the canopy a bit.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, and Commissioner Jefferson, would you second that motion?
So second.
All right, and John, will you call the vote?
Yes, first I just want to note that Commissioner Bland has been recused from this matter and has not participated in the hearing at all. Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi,
Aye.
and Commissioner Shamir Biran.
Aye.
6-0, this motion passes.
Okay, so that's approved. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
thank you all for your hard work today. And that concludes our day.